What we're going to do is look at our last conic section, which is a hyperbola. With the hyperbola, what we notice is that it's going to look similar to an ellipse, but what we have is a subtraction sign in the middle. What makes the subtraction sign is either our x squared or our y squared is going to be negative. If our x squared is negative, it's going to look like this. If our y squared is negative, it's going to look similar to the first one. So in this case, we see that our x squared is positive, so we're going to put that in the front. We're going to factor out a 4. With our y squared, we're going to factor out a negative 9. Now this is a little tricky. Since we're factoring out a negative, this is negative, it becomes positive. This is positive, it becomes negative when we factor out the negative 9. Now we're going to complete the square. So we take the negative 10. We're going to divide it by 2 and square it, and that's how we get the 25. We do the same thing with the negative 4. Divide it by 2 and square it, and that's how we're getting the 4. Notice 4 times 25 gives us 100. Negative 9 times 4 gives us negative 36. We add up these three terms, and that right there gives us 72. Just like with the ellipse, we divide both sides by 72 to set it equal to 1, and we get our final answer. So let's look at example 1, letter A. What we're going to do is we're going to complete the square. So we're going to take the negative 2, we're going to divide it by 2, and we're going to square it to get a 1. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to factor out a negative 1. When we factor out a negative 1, we get y squared minus 6y, and then we're going to divide that by 2 and square it to get 9. Now we added a 1 on this side, so we're going to add a 1 on the right side. This right here is a negative 1 and a 9, so that's negative 9. Now what we're going to do is we're going to factor it. So when we factor this trinomial, it gives us an x minus 1 squared. When we factor this trinomial, it gives us a y minus 3 squared. 10 plus 1 is 11, minus 9 gives us 2. And just like an ellipse, we're going to set it equal to 1. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. So our final answer is x minus 1 squared over 2 minus y minus 3 squared over 2. And that's equal to 1. Now, looking at letter B, notice that our y squared is positive and our x squared is negative. So we're going to keep our y squared first and our x squared second. We're going to rearrange the equation. So we have 2y squared minus 32y minus 3x squared plus 12x. And that's equal to negative 98. What we're going to do is we're going to factor out a 2, and that gives us y squared minus 16y. We're going to factor out a negative 3. That gives us negative 3x squared minus 4x, and that's equal to negative 98. Now what we're going to do is complete the square. So I'm going to take the negative 16, I'm going to divide it by 2 and square it. So I have y squared minus 16y. When I divide it by 2, I get negative 8 squared is 64. Then I'm going to take the negative 4, divide it by 2 is negative 2 squared is 4. And that's equal to negative 98. 2 times 64 is 128. And then I have minus 12. So when I add these up, what I get is 18. And I'm going to factor it. So I have y minus 8 squared minus 3x minus 2 squared. Just like an ellipse, I'm going to set it equal to 1, so I'm dividing it by 18. And when I divide it by 18, what I get is y minus 8 squared over 9 minus x minus 2 squared over 6. And that right there